You have to have all three things in alignment: your mind, your thoughts, right? Your heart and your emotions, and your gut, which is your instincts. When you have all those things aligned in what you're trying to accomplish, there's nothing that's going to stop that from happening. Hey guys, welcome to the AlignUs Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and I'm so grateful to have you guys here with us today. Today's topic is going to be about how do we start the personal growth journey? How do we awaken? How do we self-actualize to our highest potential? Joining me today are two co-hosts. We have Kevin Drummond, who is a business growth and development manager, and we have Chris Garner, who is a health and fitness expert. So let's get into it.
One of the value pieces is a lot of people want to start, they have a great idea, but they don't know where to start. When it comes to starting, you can start with something as simple as a logo. It can start with something as simple as you being creative enough to come up with an email address and then going on Gmail and opening up your email account. Whatever the action is, it's a magnetized action that's putting you in position to start. So this whole entire last week, I've been thinking about the mastermind concept. I've also been thinking about, how many people know what a mastermind is, how many people know what the benefits of a mastermind are, what comes with it, and what defines it as a mastermind. And that goes back to, okay, what is the mind? What is the mind in control of, and what creates what creates the energy or the strength of a mastermind? And it's when you have like-minded individuals that have a similar goal or something that they're trying to accomplish, and it's all aligned. And then all that mind energy from myself, you, Chris, or whoever else joins it is all coming together to create these amazing ideas that might not have come to fruition at the speed that it did had all those people not gotten involved. So from a branding standpoint, one of the things I was thinking about is, okay, what are we doing? We're sharing our perspectives. You just touched on that, right, Nick? We all have different perspectives. We could all be in the same room. We could all be in a room, let's say it's room A, and we're all looking outside the window and seeing what's happening. And your perspective of what's happening out that window in room A is going to be completely different than what Chris sees, and it's going to be completely different than what Kevin sees. And so that's the beauty of something like a mastermind, because we can discuss one topic and we can get a bunch of different views. And this really brings me to my second point, is that I've realized in my life and in my journey, you always want to feel as if you have to over deliver in value. So you try to, when you're interacting with a client or customer, you're trying to always go over and beyond to deliver. But when it really comes down to it, what you really need to do is really deliver yourself and grow yourself. And as you grow yourself, you shape your perspective out of that window, right? So one of the things I thought about for branding was minding your business, right? When you talk about minding, right, you immediately think about, oh, I just need to just worry about myself. Immediately think about the word I use, worry, has a negative connotation, right? But when you talk about the mind, you're thinking about how powerful it is. So when I say minding your business, it's like, oh, you shouldn't worry about other people. But the way I thought about it was, no, minding my business is me minding my perspective, me worrying about just me, developing my perspective, developing my growth, developing who I am as a person. So minding your business. But then I was thinking about the branding, having somewhat of like a shadow, thin word, master, and then after in a bolder font, minding your business. So it's like master minding your business. And then I was thinking like an acronym, like MYB, like just thinking like forward, like lower left, like what that would look
good.
like.
Yeah.
But it's lit. And I was also thinking like structure, when we have other people join the community, like if we have 100 people in a community and we have a weekly Zoom call, everyone's not going to be able to have, 15 minutes on the floor. Like it wouldn't be practical. So even just like compartmentalizing, saying like, okay, we're going to have 5 to 7 people talk per session, and each person is going to talk about minding their business. So how did you mind your business? Like what happened from your perspective yesterday based on the things that we've been talking about? And everyone's going to be able to share their perspective of what minding is to them. And then we can share our perspectives of what we gathered from what they're sharing. So that was what I wanted to kind of start off with today. That's what's been on my mind since we last got together. And Chris, I know you've been taking notes and I've seen the wheels going. So what you thinking, man?
I think that was, yo, masterminding your business. You might got a trademark.
That's what I was thinking too. I
Yeah.
trust y'all. I trust y'all. So we can definitely trademark together. But yeah, I think it's dope, and I haven't seen anyone that's done it. And it has the business part of it. It has the creative aspect.
Yeah, that was great. So the big thing that's on my mind right now is I watched this video with Ed Milet and Brendan Burchard over the weekend,
Love those guys.
and they were talking about I guess their audience, like who they serve. They serve the high performance community. And I like that name as opposed to or synonymous with personal development, the high performance community. And it fits right into what Kevin is saying about masterminding your business. When it comes to different perspectives, I think there are two problems when it comes to perspective. And number one is that you have to think about your perspective. You have to literally mind your business. You have to put yourself in that place because that's what's going to get all the wheels turning. You must do that. And having these mastermind conversations, having, a wide variety of people join, we can be speaking to someone that is in the pharmaceutical industry or someone that is a dancer or a sports player. It really doesn't matter. All in all, it's the same principle when it comes to high performance. So I think that we can definitely spark conversations. We can create a framework.
Yeah.
We can create a framework, getting people on that page of minding your business. You gotta put some thought into it. Once you put the thought into it, our brains are so powerful. Again, to what you said, Kevin, when we think about our minds, we think only in positive terms of how powerful the mind is. A lot of us are thinking of how do you unlock the power? How do I make my brain powerful? And then it leads right into just getting started. That 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go attitude. Once you've, put the proper amount of thought, you've developed that perspective. Now you take the first piece of action. Shout out to Napoleon Hill. You write out your actionable steps and you start before you're ready.
Yeah.
What can you do right now? I kind of went off on a tangent, but yeah, that's just where my head is at, just thinking of how we can serve people and create a high performance value, amongst these conversations. What were you going to say, Nick?
For the past year, I've been doing a lot of that, like smart, those smart meetings that I kind of mentioned to you guys about. And basically, this is what it is. You come into a Zoom meeting. Some of them are in person, but, it's a Zoom meeting. There's a facilitator, and that facilitator, and then that facilitator brings up a topic to talk about. And whether the topic is, how do you handle expectations? What are like triggers for you? How do you, deal with, what are your values, and how do you rank your values in your life, so they're a great topic and like everyday life stuff, right? Like it's just stuff that you don't, that gets brought up in a way that we think about it, but not in a clearly defined, topic, which really helps us resonate and have a good conversation. So what happens is they'll bring up the topic, and then you have the whole group, however many people are in that meeting, which ranges anywhere from 20 to 30 people about average. And then it's like, the initial person kind of gives a little bit of a share on their thought. It doesn't have to, but then it opens it up to anybody who wants to start sharing about what they're feeling and how that's resonating with their topic and what's going on in their life. So it's really inspiring, just to sit there and even just to listen, to people, because like you said, as the group is very big, not everybody may be able to share, but it's just, you don't have to assign anybody to share. It's just naturally people will start stepping up and start talking. Or, I'll take a stab. I'll start, this is what I'm thinking. And then it's cool because it becomes very powerful when they're integrating that to their own personal life experience. They're like, I used to have these values, but, then something happened. And then, now I'm seeing life like this. Right. And it's capturing those conversations, which are just absolutely riveting and life-changing. And so that's kind of how I see, the platform evolving. And these are people from all walks of life. Like you're talking about people who are just coming out of jail to coming, for people who are like doctors, whatever, highest professional, like businessmen. You get people from all over, and you're seeing perspective on different levels of and walks of life, which again is pretty powerful. But I think each meeting has to have like a facilitator who comes, who's like, which can rotate, between people, have a topic that, we're going to discuss. And then you kind of leave it open to the board, for those to want to jump in. If no one's jumping in, right? Like, it's why some of us will obviously be on the calls, to kind of lead the discussion. But, I think like there has to be some structure to it so that it flows, appropriately.
What I've noticed is that, especially nowadays, a lot of people have a similar trajectory when it comes to their performance journey. And I'm sure, you two have experienced it where you have this idea. It can, let's say business, let's just take business. You want to grow and build a business. That usually comes from you being dissatisfied with where you are or wanting to take control of your life, right? When that happened to me back in I believe it was 2020 pandemic, I decided I wanted to start a real estate business. So along with learning, the rules and the guidelines of real estate wholesaling, I spent a lot of my time on YouTube. That was when I started my personal development journey. I'm listening to discussions, I'm listening to the greats speak, and I'm just learning the principles. So yeah, I agree. And I also think that we got to give more power to people that are just there to listen. Because if we're having a discussion, and I am taking notes, but if we give our top three, it's three of us, let's say we each give our top tip for translating thought into action. That person that is looking to, start that, I don't know, that clothing business or whatever they're looking to do with their life, they can take notes. And maybe Kevin's point resonates with the most, So it's just being around the conversation. You are the average of whatever your influence is at that moment. And that's what, there's a lot of power in that.
That's exactly right. It's about us, we've been fortunate through God, through universe, whatever, to have had gotten ancient wisdom probably passed through us from lifetimes, but able to, on this journey, be able to awaken a little bit, at a period where society is looking for people to become leaders. To help us transition out of this darker phase that is going around us currently. And our goal should be to lead those conversations and welcome every individual who wants to, and this is where I feel kind of starting is welcome those people who are ready to surrender, to just surrender to having, like, for me, starting was surrendering my control of what I think is the right way to do things in life. What I felt were my thoughts, thinking that they're always the right thoughts, right? But then I realized those thoughts have been shaped by my family and the way I was raised, right? Which isn't necessarily coinciding with how authentic I am on the inside and the outside, meaning my thoughts, values, all those were like misaligned, right? So I needed to get that, alignment done for my own self, not for my family, not for the society around me, but for my own personal growth journey. And that for me started by surrendering what I thought was the right way to do things, surrendering my past, meaning that, the key for starting for me is to surrender and then keep yourself in the moment, in the present, grounding yourself, right? Realizing that, hey, whatever has happened in my past, I cannot control that part anymore. I can't keep dwelling on that, can't keep feeling guilty or shameful. And then I can't keep worrying about the future. Again, as an Enneagram type 7, we often are just always in fear about what the future is going to look like. So we try to control our present. We try to control our outcomes. But that leads to just actions that aren't aligned with who you are on the inside. And when you surrender and let things naturally happen, and you're in the moment, beautiful things will start occurring for you. You start learning new ways of attacking the same problems that you once faced, those cycles that we continue to delve into that aren't for our highest good. We finally are able to break out of those cycles. So I feel like people who are, wanting to join this group, in a way, we're all kind of surrendering to a higher way of thinking, and that thinking has us listening to different people's perspective, and then choosing what we think will work well for us.
So you said something very, very monumental, and I think it definitely resonated with me. Probably resonates with you as well, Chris. You said that when it comes to starting, and what you had to do was you had to start and accept that starting and what starting looked like necessarily didn't have to be the same thing. And the way in which your plan and your action steps manifested it might not be what you thought it was going to be. And I've seen that many times over, but until you just articulated that, I didn't really think about it. And you also said, in regards to what it would look like, because we try to have so much control, when we aren't vulnerable now, and I'm just speaking out loud what I just realized, like when you aren't vulnerable and you try to have control instead of just letting go, you end up adding more steps and pieces and details and having longer-winded conversations with people that you don't necessarily have to have, because you decided you wanted to have more control than you needed to have instead of just letting it just go. So I think that's huge. I think that's something that a lot of people are guilty of. I'm definitely guilty of it. I'm a type A personality. I'm very detail oriented. Sometimes you just have to create a 3-step process. And I do it all the time. Nick, you see me do it. It's like, hey, what 3 things did we take away from today's meeting? Okay, what do we need to do first? What's next? Okay, let's focus on this. And then after we accomplish that, let's move on. So I think that was big, like just being able to look at it and say, you know what, this is what my goal is. This is my intention. How do I go about this? And once it's revealed to you, just run it, just run with it, and don't add extra steps. Because sometimes, and a lot of times, it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be. Sometimes most of the time it's better and greater than that.
Yeah, I feel oftentimes, like, for instance, we were talking about delays, we tend to get frustrated, about when something happens or when we're expecting something to occur at a certain time period, and it doesn't occur. It triggers us and it causes us to, be upset, resentful. But if you look at it from a different perspective, that, hey, that delay, because, for instance, if it was due for somebody else wanting to create something for you, that delay that occurred because that person wasn't in the right state of mind or being to be able to produce the right type of content that you need. But if you allow it to, if you look at it that way, that, hey, it's going to turn out even better because now you've had even a week to more to think about it, that product is going to come back to you in a better state. So it certainly is about letting go of control. And when you do, it allows this flow of life. And I think about flow is like we're just going down a river. And when we're going down like a river and we're on our little tube, and all of a sudden on that pathway, there's going to be like rocks, right? And like those rocks are going to come. Those are part of life. But either we can like jam ourselves on those rocks and like, get really agitated and try to like, move them and do all those things, which causes us to be stuck, right? Like we'll get stuck energy when that happens, when we overly try to control what's happening. However, if we're just understanding and recognize what we're happening, we can kind of go on those locks, or maybe just glide right over them or scoot them to the side, and then keep it going down that river, because our body and our minds, they know what makes us feel good, right? Like what does. And when you're in areas and situations that aren't suiting your highest being, your body and mind and soul will tell you. So I agree with flow being a really major part in understanding. And that again is like surrendering to what's happening right now, it being in the present, like locked in of right now, the starting point.
I like the theme of not holding on too tight to your perspective. And the only thing I can think about, or like that it's ringing bells with, that was a good one, is the kettlebell. Yeah, it's ringing bells with the kettlebell because I tell people all the time, when you are handling the kettlebell, it doesn't matter if you are a hard style user, like a sports style user, there are different types of kettlebell users. You never want to be too rigid. You never want to hold on to the handle too much, or too tight, I should say, with a closed fist, because it doesn't allow for you to have creative control over your movements. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have goals. I think there is a fine line, and they're both equally as important. Having your goal, where you would like to get to, because that's your GPS. That's like the bat signal in the sky. You know where you want to go. But to what Kevin said about, what are my 3 actionable steps? Kevin, I know a few type A people, and I'm not a type A person. And I will honestly say that the thought processes of a type A person, I've needed in my life. I've needed those. What are the first 3 things that I can do to get me on the road to my goal? The key thing is that you have to forget, and maybe that's not the best word of use, but I'll use it. You have to forget what the goal is. Yeah. And, kind of what Nick is saying, like, you got to focus on where you are in that moment, because our subconscious minds, they don't think. Our subconscious mind just follows the direction. So if you set that direction and you focus more so on where your feet are directly under you at all times, and you're taking actionable steps, that's where, the faith comes in. And that's where you'll find miracles and you'll find good luck, and it's no such thing as luck. Everything is by plan and by design. I have a whiteboard back there. And on the top of that whiteboard, I have written, the future doesn't get better by hope. The future gets better by plan and by action. So yeah, I mean, like the hoping portion, it does come from, having that big picture goal, but the plan and action, that's where we need to live. I can say that that's where I'm living for sure. I'm living right here in plan and action. So yeah, I guess that leads into what my, I guess, actionable step is, like how we can translate thought into action. I'm kind of stealing yours, Kevin, is those first 3 steps. Set that goal, and what are your first 3 actionable moves that you can make immediately? It doesn't matter if you're ready or not. What can you do right now that is, and this is a very key piece here, what can you do right now that don't confuse motion and action? Because motion is, journaling and writing all the things out, which is super important. But what is the actionable step? What's the needle mover? Yeah. What is something that's going to make me a little bit uncomfortable, that's not going to just stroke my ego and make me feel like, oh, I've made progress because I've thought about it. What have we done? And that is, so I guess that's my way of encouraging anyone to take action, or to translate your thought into action, or get started. Is going for it with actionable steps, which those are the ones that usually make us a little bit uncomfortable. And that's where we need to be.
I like it. I was just thinking about, I literally had deja vu being in this room and whatnot, and you bringing up wholesale real estate. I actually have a real estate play for you as well. And I was literally just talking to my soon-to-be mother-in-law about a house out here that we purchased. So I'll tell you more about that. But yeah, I love it, man. Action action, action, and not making it too complex, and enjoying and appreciating where your feet are now, because 3 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even just 1 year ago, where your feet are placed right now, the mindset that you have, the habits that you have, you know, those were probably just dreams and wants at that point. So appreciating where you are, the growth, um, and not making it more complicated than it needs to be. And then, like Nick said, like just being able to release and be vulnerable and not be so rigid. Don't be so rigid with your kettlebell. That was a great analogy, and I could see it, and I was seeing it in real time. Like I said, the way you move a kettlebell and swing it up in the air, dude, that was mind blowing. So being able to have that flexibility and not be too rigid.
Yeah, I mean, I think, all these points are, you're hitting everything. We're hitting everything on the nail on the head there. And I feel, when you're first starting, or wanting to start this personal growth journey, and the things in your life have led you to get to this point, because I feel like that's what has to happen usually, is that there's a certain amount of events occur, and then it kind of triggers something in your mind that you're like, hey, something has to change. I feel like I'm getting leaving things short, or I'm not reaching my full potential. Like, I'm not sure what happened with you guys when when this journey started for you, because I really do feel it's a journey, right? Like, you don't just stumble upon this. Like, it's something that kind of, it's building in you in a way. And then there's like events that occur to kind of simultaneously like smack you, and you're like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm really needing to get myself, more aligned with who I really am. And I think that starts with first surrendering, but then after that, it's like, who am I? Like, what is exactly, who is Nikhil Sharma? What are my values? I remember what my values were like when I was growing up, but again, my parents set those values for me. What are my values? Has anyone ever asked me that? Have I asked myself that? What are my strengths? What are my character strengths? Who exactly am I? Because when you start aligning yourself with your foundational pieces, right, with like those values, those strengths, and then those two things, I feel, are a major pieces for you to be able to start manifesting your actions, your realities. Because the thing is though, all we can control are our reactions and our actions, really, in life, right? Our thoughts aren't always right. Our emotions are temporary, right? And so what we can do in the world largely is how we react to situations, and then actions we take. And if we're taking those actions from a strong foundation, those realities that we want to manifest come back to us, and it's really a beautiful thing. As I've noticed now what my realities are compared to what my realities were like 5 years ago, there's a stark difference that's happening. There's no way I would be this far along the line of transitioning from being a physician and working in the hospital to starting a tech company, and seeing it grow without surrendering, then working on myself, pouring into myself, self-care, forgiving my past, right? Not worrying about the future, being in the moment, and then step by step manifesting those realities that I'm wanting to accomplish. And truly, I feel like when you can do these kind of things, you can manifest anything your heart, soul, and body desire. You have to have all three things in alignment: your mind, your thoughts, right? Your heart and your emotions, and your gut, which is your instincts. When you have all those things aligned in what you're trying to accomplish, there's nothing that's going to stop that from happening. It's got to come internally for you. It cannot be external validation. It cannot be an external source like, oh, my parents, oh, society wants me to be this. That can't be. That's going to eventually, that energy source will die out. Your own trajectory has to come within you, and then that becomes very powerful.
You did that, man.
That's a nice closure. That's a nice closure.
On Monday morning.
You know, you guys got me inspired, man. You guys got me going this morning. You know, that's the energy, but that's what's great about this this collaboration and creating this mastermind group, is that we're gonna, you know, be able to feed off each other and hear a lot of other great insights and thoughts. You know, and I think you know, looking forward to what's coming next for this.
And there's one more point that I just wanted to add before I guess we wrap everything up. And it's just the importance of faith. And it doesn't have to be religious faith, because me personally, I'm not the most religious person, but when it comes to faith, I do understand that I am a human being and there are only but so many things that are in my control. And I can do my best to influence things through my actions. But most importantly, you have to have faith, and you have to understand that there are forces, you know, in life that work for you. They work for your cause, you know, so you may find yourself putting the work in. And Nick, you said we can't look for external validation, and that is so true. We have to look within. We have to look at, hey, at the end of the day, even if you don't achieve, you know, what it is that you're setting out for, are you proud of yourself? Are you fulfilled within yourself? Do you feel more alive than you did before you got started, or before you began your journey? So yeah, that was just one last point that I wanted to touch on, because that is where I have had, you know, trouble. So I'm sure that other people may have had trouble there. It's just understanding that you have to have faith. You got to have belief. And that belief and faith not only comes from your actions that you've taken, but also those actions being in alignment with where your mind is at that time. But yeah, I just had to say that it was on my heart.
But I wanted to say this to Chris. What you said, it resonated on so many levels, because one of the things that I thought about as you were saying it is, wow, you're speaking about the importance of having faith, and your tone of voice when you were saying it was very authoritative. It was very confident, which means that you have faith, which means that when you were referring to the time where you didn't have faith, that's hard for me to visualize and feel, because the person that's sitting in front of me is one of confidence, who looks like he has all the faith in the world, you know? So I thought that was great that you were able to be vulnerable, but I think it also was just incredible to just imagine, like, wow, this strong, confident individual in front of me is someone that actually struggled with faith. And I think that would resonate with a lot of people who are watching what we watch, because, you know, I might talk a certain way, Nick might talk a certain way, and we might have strengths right now that are just like overwhelming. And once you have conversations with us, it's very apparent, but they don't realize, like, you know, we weren't the individuals that are sitting in front of you today. Like, we had to start somewhere else where we had weaknesses that we had to focus on, that we had to come up with strategies and routines and put ourselves in uncomfortable situations to make those weaknesses strengths. So I just wanted to give you kudos on that, man, just being vulnerable, sharing that. But
Thank you.
in front of you right now, like, I have no question in my mind that you have all the faith in the world based on what you learned and put yourself through, and being able to create a plan and then see it through. And as you stack those W's, you build credibility with yourself. It boosts your self-esteem. And that's where that faith is built. So I just wanted to give appreciation on that, man. Like, I
appreciate that. I'm taking that with me. I appreciate that.
Thank you guys for tuning in to today's podcast. Until next week, peace.